right now on the National Weather Desk. As heavy snow falls in parts of the Rockies, the East Coast prepares for heavy rains and powerful winds. We'll also meet a single mother trying to put her life back together after last weekend's devastating tornadoes. Bees are busy producing honey in the spring and summer. So what do beekeepers do with the hives in the winter? We'll take a closer look at meteotsunamis and find out why scientists are just beginning to better understand them. Plus, getting your pooch prepared for the winter cold.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Eileen Whalen. Well, it is going to be a wet and windy weekend up and down the East Coast. A storm system will first bring heavy rain and the threat of flooding to Florida, and then the storm will move north. Meteorologist Brian Vandegraff shows us what folks can expect.
Well, tracking that big storm system that's going to impact a good chunk of the eastern half of the United States starting Saturday into Sunday. Some big time rains into Florida, the Carolinas, the mid-Atlantic, and then eventually into the Northeast as this system whizzes up the eastern seaboard. Winds and heavy rains, a lot of it on the wet side versus the white side. I want to point out that portions of Florida and Georgia under a slight risk for excessive rainfall for the day on Saturday, and then excessive rainfall concerns from the Carolinas through the mid-Atlantic and Northeast through the day on Sunday night into Monday. How much rain? 2 to 3 inches of rain locally, but some spots could be 4 to 5 before it's all said and done, particularly through portions of South Florida.
So how do storms like this get so strong, including those really gusty winds? We asked meteorologist Ryan Mirando to explain.
The reason the wind really picks up near these storm systems, it all has to do with balance. The Earth and its atmosphere wants to be in equilibrium, and a kind of a disruption of this balance is what causes a lot of our weather. So I'm sure you've seen the big L that stands for our low pressure centers and the big H for our high pressure centers. Think of highs like a higher amount of air particles compared to the low, which doesn't have quite as many. Now, this pressure difference creates what we know as the pressure gradient force. It's a change in pressure, and that force drags the area of more mass and throws it towards our low to create more of a balance. But in the process of that actual mass being moved, that's what creates the wind. And the stronger these two get, the closer they get to each other, the winds can get even stronger.
Meantime, a winter storm brought heavy snow to the southern Rockies. New Mexico was hit hard, with some places receiving up to 22 inches of snow. Santa Fe had 14 inches with 15 inches in Los Alamos. There are many ski areas in New Mexico, and they also got plenty of snow, which is great news leading into the Christmas and New Year's holidays. New images from Clarksville, Tennessee help put into perspective the size of that deadly EF3 tornado. Take a look at these swirling marks on the ground, scars the twister left behind. 3 people died when it touched down, and the National Weather Service says it stayed on the ground for 43 miles. Clarksville is right outside of Fort Campbell. The tornado displaced 250 U.S. Army families assigned to the post, according to the Red Cross. It was the strongest tornado of Saturday's outbreak. Well, it's been a week of putting pieces back together after Saturday's tornado outbreak. Dennis Ferrier has the story of a single mom who is working to rebuild her business dream.
The Lyric House Beauty Company is a hair salon run by its stylish owner, Elise Lasasso. But it's so much more. It's an art gallery, a clothes boutique, a place for prom photos, and Nerf gun birthday party wars. It's an idea that this single mom put her heart and soul and last dollar into. A 90-year-old home and business on Main Street, Hendersonville, right up until Saturday afternoon, as Elise worked on her final client of the day.
This is the window I looked out when she said, "It's quiet, it's not even raining." And I went right like this, and I saw the transformer explode. I'm like, let's go.
They barely got into a closet in the salon when the tornado hit. Lasasa was so happy Saturday, she snapped a quick photo of herself. 2 hours later, the very next picture on her phone. A devastating and sudden change of fortune. Insurance is not sure the old home can be saved. Her personal property insurance has not indicated it will pay for the thousands of dollars of interior renovations.
A lot of people assume, oh, don't worry, like insurance has got her, you know, I'm a very small business with a very big dream, and that's expensive, you know, to start. I'm not rolling in the dough.
Yellowstone National Park's winter season begins today. Now, typically that means big road restrictions, but due to limited snowfall so far, visitors will be able to travel in the park. Now, the type of transportation used on the roads, however, will depend on road conditions. Park staff will work closely with all operators and provide updates as conditions develop. Winter travel ends in mid-March, and roads will start to reopen to automobiles in mid-April. Other places around the country are also preparing for winter. Tawny Davis is in San Antonio, where the city-owned utility says it's ready to keep people warm when the cold air moves in.
CPS Energy is doing the work necessary to ensure a reliable system this year. ERCOT completed their inspections at their plants and no issues were identified. President and CEO Rudy Garza says this is to ensure there is not a repeat of the 2021 outage.
Based on what we learned from Winter Storm Uri, now, you know, in the event we get into a load shed situation, a controlled outage situation, customers should see 15 minutes off and then hours on, depending upon how much load that ERCOT's asking us to, you know, to give them.
CPS Energy will also be launching a winter demand response program that will be available for both residential and commercial residents.
As a way to have an additional tool available to our operators and our team to be responsive in the need, should there be any need from a market signal or from a demand perspective.
As temperatures continue to drop, to promote reliability, CPS Energy is making sure the customer is aware of their options should they ever need emergency services.
I feel like our customers are getting more information than they have in the past, and information is key to allowing them to make decisions about their own plans.
El Nino has dominated conversations about this winter. Just yesterday, the Climate Prediction Center said the weather phenomenon is now slightly favored to be historically strong, with a good chance to be one of the 5 strongest since 1950. Now, what that means for you depends on where you live. Seattle meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell shows us the potential impact in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, hi there, everybody. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. You've probably heard that we are heading into an El Nino winter. What does that mean for the Pacific Northwest? Well, during a neutral, normal year, we have the mid-latitude jet stream bringing the wet weather day in and day out, it seems often, back into the Pacific Northwest and keeping things plenty wet and plenty green here in the Emerald City. But during an El Nino year, the jet stream takes a dive to the south and starts to pump that heavier and steadier rainfall into the Golden State of California instead, leaving things in very general terms drier and often a little bit warmer back around the Pacific Northwest. So bottom line, with an El Nino on deck, we do tend to see milder Pacific Northwest winters. That will likely be the case, especially as we head into January and February. Again, the heavier rain steering to the south into California, lighter rainfall around Puget Sound as a result. However, that does tend to impact the snowpack. In years past, we tend to get less snow up there at the ski resorts during an El Nino winter. So kind of good news, bad news in terms of what we could see here around Seattle and Portland over the next several months. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell.
And check out this video from Michigan sent to us by meteorologist Joe Charlevoix. This is Lake Cadillac Thursday morning, and you can see that as the sun rose and temperatures warmed above freezing, ice on the lake started melting in streaks. Now, if you look closely as the sun sets, you can see the moon make an appearance in the upper left corner. And check out the beautiful rime ice along the Appalachian Trail in Tennessee. Rime ice occurs as supercooled water droplets in clouds or fog freeze upon contact with objects that are below freezing. Now, if you look closely, you can see the feathery buildup on this golden rod, showing how rime ice develops into the prevailing winds at the time. Thanks to meteorologist Dave Kierks at our station in the Tri-Cities for posting these photos on his Facebook page. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll look at ways to keep your pets safe while outdoors this season. Plus, we'll hear from a beekeeper about how they keep their hives alive during the cold winter months.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. We have a pretty nice looking day on tap in the Northeast. Afternoon highs will make a run at the low 50s for a lot of towns. Look at all the sunshine. That's 1 o'clock this afternoon. Saturday looks pretty good as well. That's the pick of the weekend in the Northeast with a partly to mostly sunny sky. Temperatures will be in the 40s to near 50 degrees. Those clouds, they're going to increase and thicken up during the course of your Sunday. That's in advance of our next storm that will arrive for Sunday night to Monday with rain and wind.
I'm meteorologist Jasmine Lomax with a look at the mid-Atlantic region. We'll have high pressure over the region, keeping us nice and dry. It means nice and clear conditions throughout the day. Expect plenty of sunshine for a very nice start to the weekend. You'll notice, though, that more clouds begin to move in for Saturday, and that's ahead of our next weather maker coming on Sunday. This afternoon, temperatures will be above average, reaching the 40s and 50s. Then overnight, we'll cool down to the 30s and 40s.
Hey, good Friday morning. I'm meteorologist Michael Ehrenberg with a look at your Southeast regional forecast for this Friday. Much of the Southeast under high pressure east of the Mississippi to the Carolinas, so gorgeous, sunny but cold weather out there. For most central and south Florida, some showers possible with a stall front beginning to lift north. Line of strong storms possible approaching the Mississippi River Valley for parts of Arkansas, Louisiana, and eastern Texas, especially during the afternoon and evening hours. Highs in the 50s and 60s, most areas, 70s in central and south Florida.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Ice spikes forming in northeast Tennessee. How does this rare thing happen? First, water freezes on the surface from the outside, leaving a tiny hole in the middle. As the ice forms below the surface, depending on the rate of freezing, water gets pushed up through that hole, freezing as it meets the air. The spike continues growing until all the water is frozen. All this because water expands as it freezes.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
Welcome back. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Last week's devastating tornadoes near Nashville were a flashback for some near Chattanooga. More than 3 years ago, deadly tornadoes hit on Easter Sunday. They touched down and destroyed homes and businesses in Collegedale. Now folks want to use a building that was heavily damaged back in 2020 to help Tennessee's most recent tornado victims recover. Mary Beth Mangrum reports.
The 2020 Easter tornadoes left people across our area devastated.
On that same night, Easter Sunday,
many had to deal with severe weather damage to their homes and property, like these mobile homes in Ottawa. The city of Collegedale and Collegedale Commons are familiar with what comes after the storm. This barn wall was completely blown out after tornadoes touched down 3 years ago. And because of that, the Collegedale Commons knows what it's like to rebuild. With Christmas fast approaching, David Bartow's foundation is searching for toys for children whose presents may have been swept away by the storm.
Having toys, having bikes, having things to do and to play with while their parents are trying to get life back to normal.
This is not their first time trying to spread Christmas joy to those affected by severe weather.
Those were also at Christmas. We did a big drive and filled up 2 semi-truck loads over about a week, and we took everything over to Lake County. We want to sort of pay it forward.
We all know bees produce honey. It typically happens in the spring and the summer. So what do beekeepers do with the hives during the winter months? Olivia Zinn has the answer.
Steve and Kathy Roth have been at the forefront of the beekeeping business for the last 27 years. As the owners of Bee Holding Acres, they maintain 18 hives diligently throughout the year. There's even one in their kitchen that was made by an Ohio Valley inmate.
We put up a little over 1,000 pounds of honey this past year, about 750 pounds in the springtime, and then another 250 in the fall. And it's become a family affair. My children, my grandchildren, my in-laws, we have a good time with it. We have a lot of fun.
While winter may seem like a slow time for bees, Roth actually undergoes a year-round process in order for the bees to prosper in the spring.
So I have taken measures through the summer to combat the mites, to make sure that my bees go into the winter healthy, disease-free, adequate stores, and adequate numbers.
If a beekeeper follows that routine, the colony will survive. But if they fall short, the colony could experience some turmoil into next season. Honeybees will also find their own ways to push through the bitter temperatures. Roth says that each hive will store up to 90 pounds of honey to keep warm.
When I make sure that they're set for the winter, they have adequate stores to get through the winter, then I'm done. I'm done then again until spring when they start to multiply again and the flowers come into bloom.
We are less than a week away from the official start of winter, and already many parts of the country have seen temperatures below freezing. But it's not just the number on the thermometer that determines how cold we feel. Meteorologist Kit Alexander explains.
The thermometer may be reading in the 30s, but there is something that the thermometer is not telling you. The wind chill, or how it feels outside. The wind chill is a gauge for the human body to know what it feels like as you step out the door. For instance, the temperature is reading just below freezing at 31 degrees, but there is a current wind speed of 10 miles per hour. This gives us a wind chill of 22 degrees. When there is no wind, there is a layer of heat between our skin and the cold air around us. However, wind will remove the insulating layer from our skin by speeding heat loss and whisking away the warmth. One of the most important things to do during cold weather is dress in layers, and make sure to completely cover your skin, including your hands. Not taking the proper precautions in the cold can lead to frostbite or even hypothermia, especially during prolonged periods of time outside. So next time you step outside and the temperature is in the 30s, keep in mind that it may feel colder than the temperature is reading.
You've heard of tsunamis, but have you ever heard the term meteotsunami? Emily Gracie sat down with a NOAA scientist to find out what causes them and how they differ from traditional tsunamis.
Called meteotsunamis because they have similar characteristics to more traditional seismic tsunamis. So tsunamis caused by things like underwater earthquakes or volcanoes or landslides. Meteotsunamis and seismic tsunamis last anywhere from a couple of minutes up to maybe a couple of hours. So they can be much longer rises and falls in water level. So they're very similar to seismic tsunamis, but caused by the weather or the atmosphere instead of land underwater.
How does the weather cause this giant wave?
You can have it from a few different causes. The kind of the most common is from summertime thunderstorms. And as the storm is moving along the water, that change in pressure causes a wave on the water surface. And initially that wave might only be a few inches. The wave ends up feeling the bottom of the ocean. And when you get the wave moving at the same speed as your storm, you keep feeding energy into that wave. So it started at maybe a few inches. It can grow up to maybe a few feet. It can grow even further as it gets into shallow water. And then as it gets into like estuaries or bays, and you can get amplification up to, in some cases in the Mediterranean, they've observed meteotsunamis at 15 feet or higher.
Is there a warning system in place?
At least on the East Coast, for instance, in the U.S., weather systems typically come from land and propagate off of shore. For that reason, the buoys that we have offshore for seismic tsunamis aren't as helpful necessarily for advance warning. What we are doing at NOAA, though, is the Weather Service now will kind of monitor coastal conditions for the type of conditions that we know lead to potential meteotsunami events. And if we detect one in one of our gauges, the Weather Service will issue a statement to let people know that there might be anomalous wave conditions.
To learn more about meteotsunamis, including how they're detected and where they can occur, check out the longer version of this interview on YouTube. Just search the National Weather Desk and hit subscribe while you're there. And we want to remind you about this week's episode of our podcast, Off the Radar. Take a look at this sneak peek Emily posted on TikTok.
You know that sinking feeling when you discover fruit rotting in the back of your fridge or pulling out a bag of wilted spinach that you never got around to eating? How about that Tupperware container with unrecognizable leftovers that's been in there for a month? What if I told you that by throwing out less food, you could have a substantial impact on climate change?
The average American wastes about 1 pound of food per person per day.
Today, I'm going off the radar to talk to experts about why tackling food waste can be one of the most potent weapons we have as individuals to fight climate change. We'll learn the science behind why rotting food produces harmful climate and environmental impacts, and we'll equip you with practical advice for slashing household food waste.
New episodes of Off the Radar drop every Tuesday. You can listen right now anywhere you get your podcasts. And now let's take a look at some Christmas lights in Hershey, Pennsylvania, the sweetest place on earth.
Good Friday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. Today, your weather maker across the plains is going to be this disturbance that's slowly moving its way closer to the Ohio Valley. So there will be some rain, even a little snow mixed with this today. Now, as it continues moving to the east, it's going to pick up some energy and moisture with that. So as it continues moving closer to the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley, a wet Saturday, and that shifts more into the Ohio Valley and more towards the East Coast on Sunday, but chilly behind that.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. It's a little chilly from El Paso all the way back on up into Amarillo into the 30s, warm and humid as we get down to the south and southeast with temperatures in the 50s and 60s. We'll be watching this front. Big showers for Dallas and maybe back on up into the Arklatex later in the day. If cold front drops in, that means dry air and clearing skies, also cooler temperatures. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia, and that is a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a happy Friday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Out west, things are sitting pretty in the Valley of the Sun, back to a perfect 75 today in Phoenix, and that warmth extends all the way back out through the Central Valley of California. 35 will be it for Missoula and 32 out of Jackson Hole. High pressure keeping things mainly dry through the Four Corners region, with a front lifting out of Seattle later today. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
We talk a lot about how to stay safe outdoors in the winter months, but what about your pets? Veterinarian Devin Smith has some winter weather safety tips for your four-legged friends.
Winter weather is fast approaching, and so I thought it might be a good time to go over a few tips for pets. First, whenever possible, use pet-friendly de-icers for pavements, stairs, or sidewalks, as traditional salt can be irritating to those paw pads. Second, if your pet doesn't have a heavy coat or isn't bred for the winter weather, consider investing in a nice warm jacket or sweater to help keep Fido warm. Third, be mindful about potential antifreeze exposure. This engine fluid has a sweet taste, so it can be enticing to pets, but it's toxic. Lastly, veterinarians generally recommend that flea, tick, and heartworm preventions are continued year-round, so don't skip those preventions during the cold winter months. Connect with us at our station website by looking up For Pet's Sake. We'd also love to see your favorite pet moments that you can share with our community. Go to our news app, click Explore, chime in, and upload your pet-tastic photos.
We'd love to connect with you. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search the National Weather Desk. Thank you for joining us today. For Eileen Whalen, I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Make it a great Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you right back here on Monday.